The Imperium of Man is a galaxy-spanning colossus forged in endless war, ruthless bureaucracy, and iron-fisted doctrine. Yet, at its core, it's the unshakable faith in the Emperor that binds its trillions of citizens together. The galaxy is dark, unforgiving, and chaotic, where faith is often the only light against encroaching darkness. This isn't just a belief system. It's the law of existence itself for many in the Imperium. Adherence to this faith, known as the Cult Imperialis, governs life, death, and even the afterlife. It is both a unifying force and a powerful weapon, wielded by the Adeptus Ministorum, or the Ecclesiarchy, which serves as the Imperium's vast religious machine. The Imperium's devotion to the Emperor was born from necessity and has evolved into a rigid, highly structured belief system. The Emperor is no longer just a ruler. He's a god whose divine will guides humanity against the myriad dangers lurking in the void. But this faith wasn't always a central tenet of imperial life. In fact, the Emperor himself once rejected the notion of godhood, viewing worship as a path to fanaticism that could fracture humanity. His goal was to guide humankind through reason, science, and unity. Yet, as the tides of war and heresy reshaped the galaxy, faith became the binding force that held the Imperium together when logic alone could not withstand the darkness. The religion of the Imperium, now overseen by the Adeptus Ministorum, is a paradox. It preaches unity but often divides, spreads hope yet demands fear, and promises salvation while condemning heretics with ferocious zeal. The Ecclesiarchy, based on Terra, enforces the worship of the God Emperor with the vigor of an army, and its influence reaches every corner of imperial space. From the smallest hive worker to the highest noble, the people of the Imperium learn that unquestioning faith in the Emperor is not merely encouraged, but demanded. This is not a benign creed. It's one that punishes any doubt with fire and sword. The Ecclesiarchy's power is a matter of survival, for it believes that only unwavering devotion can shield humanity from the countless alien, heretical, and demonic threats looming over the galaxy. The spread of this faith, however, didn't happen overnight. The transformation of the Emperor's vision from secular unifier to divine ruler occurred through tragedy and necessity, shaped by the disastrous events of the Horus Heresy. This devastating civil war tore the nascent Imperium apart and nearly claimed the Emperor's life. To his followers, the Emperor's survival, albeit on the brink of death, was nothing short of a miracle, a sign that he was indeed divine. But for the Adeptus Ministorum, it was the spark needed to rally the people and consolidate power through religious authority. Today, the Ministorum enforces a strict orthodoxy through its extensive network of clergy, preachers, and missionaries, many of whom are backed by the fanatical Sisters of Battle, the militant wing of the Ecclesiarchy. But for every loyal imperial citizen who lives and dies by this faith, there are untold thousands who secretly doubt or openly defy the Ecclesiarchy's authority. To challenge the word of the Emperor's Church is to risk being branded a heretic, facing death or worse. For the average citizen, loyalty is not a choice, but a survival instinct woven into their very understanding of the universe. Yet, despite this apparent unity, the religion of the Imperium is riddled with complexities, conflicts, and contradictions. The Cult Imperialis is both an immovable pillar and a dangerous weapon, one that can be wielded to inspire hope or incite despair. Beneath the surface lies a story of ideological battles, zealotry, and a continual struggle to interpret the Emperor's true will. Different worlds may have their own local saints and martyrs, and the interpretations of the Ministorum's doctrine can vary, often violently, from sector to sector. Even within the highest ranks of the Ecclesiarchy, there are those who whisper doubts, seeing the Emperor not as a god, but as a man who was forced into divinity by the needs of a fractured humanity. In the vast Imperium, the Cult Imperialis serves as both shield and sword, defending humanity from threats that it can barely comprehend and seeking to guide it through a galaxy devoid of mercy. As we delve deeper, we'll explore the major players, critical events, and the intricate machinery that keeps this vast faith alive. The story of the Imperium's religion is one of survival, transformation, and an unyielding belief that even in humanity's darkest hour, the light of the Emperor will guide it to salvation. This belief is more than an abstract ideal. It's the engine that powers the Imperium, sustaining its people as they march into an unending war for survival. To understand this faith is to understand the very soul of the Imperium of man. In the sprawling apparatus of the Imperium, few entities wield as much influence over its citizens as the Adeptus Ministorum. This vast religious institution, known more commonly as the ecclesiarchy, is the central authority that manages the worship of the Emperor. Through its sermons, decrees, and armies of preachers, it enforces the cult imperialis, the official state religion of the Imperium. This is not simply a matter of faith. The ecclesiarchy oversees an intricate, galaxy-wide network dedicated to maintaining spiritual control, upholding strict orthodoxy, and crushing any hint of heresy. At its head is the ecclesiarch, a powerful figure whose authority rivals that of the High Lords of Terra. The ecclesiarch is the supreme spiritual leader, entrusted with the ultimate duty of preserving the purity of the Emperor's teachings. While the Adeptus Terra governs the physical and administrative needs of the Imperium, the ecclesiarch holds sway over its soul. The position of ecclesiarch is fraught with danger, for it comes with the burden of both appeasing the countless followers of the imperial faith and managing the ambitious, often treacherous underlings within the Ministorum. Beneath the ecclesiarch, ranks upon ranks of clerics, confessors, cardinals, and missionaries spread the Emperor's word to the Imperium's trillion-strong population. This hierarchy is rigid, with each rank responsible for different levels of spiritual and administrative duties. Cardinals, for instance, are powerful figures in their own right, governing vast stretches of space and leading the faithful across entire sectors. Often they command immense loyalty from the people, and a cardinal's influence can shape the policies of entire star systems. Cardinals, in turn, rely on countless preachers and priests who move among the masses, visiting remote planets, preaching in hive cities, and converting the lost. They bring imperial doctrine to worlds both wild and civilized, ensuring that even the farthest reaches of the Imperium know of the God Emperor. One of the most distinctive branches within the Ministorum is the Order of the Missionaries. These individuals are sent to the fringes of the Imperium, where the faith of the Emperor is yet to take root, or where rebellion simmers under the surface. Their work is dangerous, often deadly, as they bring imperial creed to worlds teeming with ancient beliefs or entrenched cults. Missionaries are expected to be both persuasive and unyielding, wielding not only words, but sometimes arms to sway the people. If persuasion fails, the missionaries call for the support of the ecclesiarchy's military arm, the Sisters of Battle. The Adepta Sororitas, or the Sisters of Battle, are the most direct manifestation of the Ministorum's might. They are the militant branch of the ecclesiarchy, serving as an army of nuns who carry out the Emperor's will with unwavering zeal. Bound by vows of loyalty and fanatical faith, the sisters are known for their uncompromising stance against heresy, wielding bolters and flamers to purge any who would question the Emperor's divinity. Clad in power armor and adorned with the symbols of the imperial faith, the Sisters of Battle are as terrifying as they are devout. They serve the ecclesiarchy's cause with singular focus, often becoming the last line of defense between the faithful and the forces of heresy. The sisters' dedication is legendary, and their presence serves as a reminder to the citizens of the Imperium that the Emperor's wrath is ever near. A unique figure within the ecclesiarchy's ranks is the confessor. Unlike cardinals or high-ranking officials, confessors are often mobile, wandering from place to place, hearing the sins of the faithful, leading them in prayer, and rooting out any who harbor doubts about the Emperor's divinity. Confessors can become cult figures in their own right, gathering flocks of followers who view them as near saints. They serve a critical function in maintaining morale, especially in times of crisis, and can quickly rally the faithful to defend against threats. Confessors are charismatic and skilled in manipulation, able to stoke the fires of fervor among the faithful and unleash them in waves of fanaticism against perceived enemies. Another crucial figure within the Ministorum is the preacher. These individuals serve as the link between the Ministorum's teachings and the common citizens of the Imperium. Preachers are the ones who speak directly to the people, interpreting the words of the ecclesiarchy for the masses. They serve in the cities, hive slums, and battlefields, reminding the people of their duty to the Emperor and inspiring soldiers before they charge into war. Often seen as the backbone of the ecclesiarchy, preachers are relentless in their mission, instilling the Emperor's will even in the darkest corners of imperial society. Their influence is immense, for they are the ones who see the suffering and hardship of the Imperium firsthand, transforming it into fuel for unwavering devotion. Despite the rigid hierarchy, the Ministorum's ranks are not immune to conflict. Ambition, envy, and power struggles are rife within its structure. Cardinals often feud for control over star systems or rival each other in influence over the ecclesiarch. The lure of political power within the ecclesiarchy is strong, and while the cult imperialis preaches humility, many in its upper echelons use their positions to further their own agendas. The balance between spiritual devotion and personal ambition is delicate, and the repercussions of such power struggles can be felt across the Imperium. Often, the faith of entire worlds can hinge on the outcome of these internal conflicts, and a slighted cardinal or a disgraced confessor can bring ruin to entire sectors. The reach of the Adeptus Ministorum is all-encompassing. Through its control over the faithful, the ecclesiarchy can sway imperial policies, direct crusades, and even influence the Adeptus Terra. While the Ministorum itself has no formal role in the military governance of the Imperium, its moral authority is such that few would dare to defy its will. Entire wars have been fought, crusades launched, and planets purged on the command of a single cardinal or under the ecclesiarch's edict. The Ministorum's influence extends into nearly every aspect of life, from the rites of birth and death to the vows taken by soldiers on the eve of battle. While the Ministorum wields considerable power, its actions are technically constrained by the decree passive, a restriction imposed following the age of apostasy. This edict prevents the ecclesiarchy from controlling any men under arms, a rule established to curb its growing influence over the Imperium's military. However, the decree passive does not apply to female warriors, allowing the ecclesiarchy to maintain its private army in the form of the Adepta Sororitas. This loophole, exploited by the ecclesiarch of the time, has allowed the Sisters of Battle to flourish as the Ministorum's holy warriors, serving as a constant reminder of the Ministorum's willingness to bend rules to maintain power. The Adeptus Ministorum stands as the Imperium's shield against spiritual decay. Its clergy, preachers, and sisters are bound together by a singular purpose: to ensure that humanity's faith in the Emperor remains absolute. They are a force of order in a galaxy spiraling into chaos, dedicated to preserving the sanctity of the Emperor's vision. However, this dedication comes with a cost, for the Ministorum's power is both a boon and a threat to the Imperium. The fanatical zeal it fosters has forged a united front against heresy and alien gods, yet it has also bred suspicion, intolerance, and violence. To question the Ministorum is to question the Emperor, and in the Imperium of man, that is a heresy punishable by death. In the grim and unforgiving galaxy of the 41st millennium, the origins of the Adeptus Ministorum are shrouded in both legend and brutal necessity. The ecclesiarchy was not born overnight, but instead emerged through centuries of struggle, fueled by humanity's desperation to survive in a universe teeming with threats. As the Imperium expanded, so too did its encounters with dangers that defied understanding: Xenos empires, warp-spawned horrors, and corrupting heresies that threatened to tear humanity apart from within. In such a hostile environment, the faith in the Emperor grew from a spark into a blazing inferno, offering the Imperium a much-needed symbol of hope and resilience. Yet the journey to establish the ecclesiarchy as a central pillar of imperial life was neither smooth nor inevitable. It was a path forged through the fires of war and political intrigue. The origins of imperial worship can be traced back to the final years of the Unification Wars, as the Emperor of mankind sought to bring the scattered human tribes of Terra under his rule. The Emperor, a being of immense power and intellect, envisioned a future where humanity was united by reason, science, and the pursuit of knowledge, rather than superstition or religious fervor. As he rose to power, the Emperor deliberately positioned himself as a secular leader, rejecting claims of divinity and banning all forms of organized religion. He saw faith as a divisive force, one that could lead to fanaticism and blind obedience, posing a threat to the stability he sought to establish. However, while the Emperor himself resisted religious worship, the seeds of a faith in his divinity began to take root. Many of his followers, awestruck by his abilities and charisma, began to view him as more than a man. They saw him as a god, a belief that persisted despite his repeated denials. This early worship was fragmented, scattered across the vast territory of the Imperium as humanity embarked on the Great Crusade, reclaiming lost human worlds from the grip of alien oppressors and tyrants. Among the countless soldiers and civilians who witnessed the Emperor's might firsthand, the notion of his divinity grew stronger, spurred on by the miraculous victories he led against insurmountable odds. The breaking point came with the Horus Heresy, a civil war that devastated the Imperium and nearly led to its annihilation. The Emperor's favored son, Horus, fell to chaos and waged war against his father in an attempt to claim the Imperium for himself. This treachery shattered the Emperor's vision for humanity, plunging the galaxy into chaos. As the Horus Heresy reached its climax, the Emperor engaged in a fateful duel with Horus aboard the traitor's flagship. The Emperor emerged victorious, but at a terrible cost. Mortally wounded, he was forced onto the Golden Throne, a life support device that kept his failing body alive, but rendered him a silent, immobile figure. For many, this act of sacrifice transformed the Emperor from a mere leader into a martyr, solidifying his image as a divine protector who had given everything to save humanity. In the aftermath of the Horus Heresy, the Imperium was left in a state of collapse. Countless planets lay in ruins, and the unity that the Emperor had fought so hard to achieve was fractured. It was during this time that the need for a unifying force became painfully clear. The Emperor's custodians, those who remained loyal to his vision, saw that without a single binding faith, humanity would splinter into chaos. This was the moment that marked the birth of the Cult Imperialis, a state religion centered on the Emperor's divinity, established to maintain order and reinforce loyalty across the Imperium's fragmented territories. In the centuries that followed, the fledgling ecclesiarchy began to grow in power, evolving from a loose collection of cults and factions into a unified organization. Driven by the desperate need for stability, the Cult Imperialis took root across the galaxy, with preachers and missionaries traveling to every corner of the Imperium to spread the Emperor's word. The role of the ecclesiarchy became increasingly crucial, providing not only spiritual guidance, but also a sense of identity and purpose for humanity in a hostile universe. By formalizing worship of the Emperor, the ecclesiarchy managed to forge a common ground for humanity, transcending the political divisions and rivalries that threatened to tear the Imperium apart. However, the rise of the ecclesiarchy was not without its challenges. The Ministorum's power expanded rapidly, and with it came inevitable conflicts. Secular authorities, particularly the Adeptus Terra, viewed the growing influence of the ecclesiarchy with suspicion, fearing that the Ministorum's zealous preachers would undermine the authority of the imperial bureaucracy. Tensions grew as the ecclesiarchy's leaders, intoxicated by their newfound power, began to push for greater control over the Imperium's population, believing that only through absolute faith in the Emperor could humanity survive the threats that loomed at its borders. These tensions reached a breaking point during the Age of Apostasy, a dark period in the Imperium's history when the ecclesiarchy's unchecked ambition nearly led to a second civil war. the notorious High Lord Gog Van Dyer, who held both the positions of ecclesiarch and master of the administratum, used his authority to impose brutal religious reforms and consolidate his personal power. Van Dyer's tyranny sparked a wave of dissent, leading to a massive uprising against the ecclesiarchy's abuses. This period of turmoil threatened to tear the Imperium apart once more, as Van Dyer's despotic rule led to widespread suffering and disillusionment among the faithful. The age of apostasy ended with Van Dyer's assassination, but its impact was lasting. To prevent a recurrence of such tyranny, the newly established decree passive banned the ecclesiarchy from directly controlling any men under arms. This act of reform marked a significant turning point in the history of the Adeptus Ministorum, forcing it to relinquish its military power and reshaping its role within the Imperium. Nevertheless, the ecclesiarchy retained its influence through the Sisters of Battle, the Adepta Sororitas, who would serve as the Ministorum's enforcers while technically complying with the decree passive's restrictions. Despite these reforms, the ecclesiarchy continued to wield substantial power over the Imperium's populace. The cult imperialis became deeply entrenched in the daily lives of citizens across the galaxy. Every moment of their existence, from birth to death, was marked by rites, prayers, and doctrines that reinforced loyalty to the Emperor. For the average citizen, worship of the Emperor was not a matter of choice, but a way of life, an unbreakable law enforced by the ever-watchful eyes of the Ministorum's agents. Over the centuries, this devotion transformed into a rigid orthodoxy, with the ecclesiarchy ruthlessly stamping out any deviations or heretical beliefs that threatened to destabilize the Imperium's unity. The ecclesiarchy's transformation from a collection of fervent believers into a vast religious bureaucracy was complete. The faith that began as a unifying force in humanity's darkest hour had become an institution, one that demanded obedience and controlled nearly every aspect of imperial life. It preached salvation but imposed punishment, offering solace to the faithful while condemning heretics to burn. As the Ministorum's power grew, so too did its role as the Imperium's spiritual backbone, a pillar of order in a galaxy ruled by fear and superstition. This evolution of the ecclesiarchy laid the foundations for the faith that endures in the Imperium to this day. What began as scattered reverence for a powerful leader became a belief system so absolute that to question it was to risk death. As the Imperium expanded across the stars, the faith in the Emperor, cemented by the Adeptus Ministorum, grew to encompass an intricate system of rituals, doctrines, and practices. What was once a desperate need for unity transformed into an unyielding devotion that infiltrated every aspect of life in the Imperium. The ecclesiarchy ensured that each planet, each hive city, and each family adhered to the tenets of the cult imperialis, weaving a vast web of influence that spanned worlds. As a result, the spread of the imperial faith followed a carefully orchestrated series of steps, each stage reinforcing the Ministorum's reach over human hearts and minds. The process of bringing a planet into the fold of the cult imperialis often began with a visit from missionaries or preachers, tasked with assessing the population's susceptibility to the faith. In many cases, these missionaries operated as the vanguard of imperial rule, arriving before the Astra Militarum or Adeptus Arbites to prepare the people spiritually for incorporation into the Imperium. On worlds where belief systems already existed, the Ministorum's representatives skillfully adapted or overrode these beliefs, transforming local deities and spirits into aspects of the Emperor or saints of the faith. Through persuasive sermons and displays of imperial miracles, the missionaries wove the Emperor's worship into the fabric of the planet's culture, aligning the population's values with those of the Imperium. For newly conquered or compliant worlds, the integration process was smoother, though no less intense. The Ministorum's agents would establish temples, erect statues, and introduce the prayers and hymns that would become daily fixtures in the lives of the local population. Every stage of life, from birth to adulthood to death, became marked by ceremonies that honored the emperor. Newborns would be baptized in the faith, warriors would go to battle with blessings, and even death became a final offering to the god emperor. The cult imperialis ensured that the emperor's presence was felt in every significant moment, creating a sense of awe and fear that bound the population to the Imperium. On more resistant worlds, however, the process was far from peaceful. Planets that clung to ancient beliefs or refused to acknowledge the emperor's divinity were dealt with harshly. The Ministorum, often backed by the Sisters of Battle, took drastic measures to enforce compliance. Entire populations could be purged, temples burned, and local priesthoods eradicated to clear the way for the cult imperialis. Those who resisted were labeled heretics and enemies of humanity, treated as threats to the Imperium's spiritual unity. The ecclesiarchy's intolerance of dissent ensured that every new addition to the Imperium was thoroughly purged of its former beliefs, creating a monolithic culture of emperor worship that left no room for alternatives. Once a world was secured under the faith, the next stage involved the construction of cathedrals, basilicas, and shrines dedicated to the emperor's glory. These buildings, monumental in scale, were often the most imposing structures on the planet, towering above the cities and visible for miles. The sheer scale of these constructions served as a daily reminder of the emperor's presence, instilling reverence and awe in the population. Inside, walls were adorned with frescoes and statues depicting scenes of imperial saints, battles against heretics, and the emperor in his most iconic poses. The architecture itself was designed to inspire both fear and devotion, reminding citizens of their place within the Imperium and the consequences of defiance. The spread of faith didn't stop at the construction of places of worship. It extended into every aspect of public life. Workdays in factories and fields began with prayers to the emperor. Public gatherings, from trade fairs to military parades, included mandatory hymns and blessings. Citizens were encouraged to report any signs of heretical behavior or unorthodox beliefs among their neighbors, creating an environment of mutual surveillance. The Ministorum's influence penetrated even the most mundane aspects of daily existence, ensuring that each individual's life was deeply intertwined with the teachings of the ecclesiarchy. Within the family unit, the Ministorum's teachings shaped the values and beliefs passed down from generation to generation. Parents taught their children to revere the emperor, stressing obedience, loyalty, and vigilance against heresy. This indoctrination was reinforced through education, where young minds were shaped to become dutiful subjects of the Imperium. Schools operated under the Ministorum's authority, teaching not only literacy and basic arithmetic, but also the tenets of the faith and the importance of devotion to the emperor. History lessons emphasized humanity's divine destiny, presenting the emperor as a guiding light who had lifted humanity from the darkness and would one day lead them to ultimate victory against all enemies. The ecclesiarchy's reach extended even into the ranks of the military, where soldiers were indoctrinated to fight in the emperor's name. Imperial Guard regiments often marched into battle under the banners of the ecclesiarchy, their morale bolstered by the presence of preachers and confessors who reminded them that they fought not merely for survival, but for a sacred cause. In times of conflict, the Ministorum's representatives would stand at the front lines, delivering blessings, offering last rites, and rallying troops to fight with righteous fury. This fusion of military duty with religious obligation transformed battles into acts of worship, with soldiers fighting not only to protect the Imperium, but also to honor the emperor's name. The Ministorum's influence also manifested in the elaborate system of relics and holy artifacts, which were venerated as symbols of the emperor's power. These relics could range from the personal items of long-dead saints to fragments of ancient weapons used in wars of faith. Many imperial citizens believed these objects held supernatural power, capable of granting blessings, protection, or even miraculous healing. These artifacts were carefully preserved, transported with reverence, and displayed during religious ceremonies, adding a tangible element of the divine to the daily lives of the faithful. Pilgrims would travel across star systems to catch a glimpse of these relics, participating in a shared ritual that reinforced their bond to the Emperor. For many, pilgrimage became a vital expression of faith, with believers journeying to holy sites scattered across the Imperium. Some sought the tombs of saints, while others traveled to worlds where miracles were said to have occurred. These journeys were often perilous, as pilgrims faced the dangers of warp travel, alien raiders, and inhospitable environments. Despite these risks, countless Imperial citizens saw pilgrimage as their sacred duty, a way to demonstrate their devotion. These voyages also allowed the Ministorum to showcase its power and resources, as cathedrals on pilgrimage worlds became monumental displays of the ecclesiarchy's influence, with grand ceremonies held to honor the arrival of devout travelers. At the heart of the Ministorum's efforts to maintain control was the concept of heresy, a catch-all term for any deviation from the Orthodox faith. To the ecclesiarchy, heresy was not merely a personal failing, but a contagious disease that threatened to unravel the very fabric of the Imperium. As a result, the Ministorum took extreme measures to root out heresy wherever it appeared. Agents known as witch hunters roamed the galaxy, investigating any rumors of deviance and employing brutal methods to cleanse suspected heretics. These witch hunters were authorized to execute those found guilty on the spot, their authority derived from the ecclesiarchy's claim to safeguard the Emperor's will. Inquisitions, purges, and trials became common occurrences on worlds suspected of harboring heretical elements, serving as grim reminders of the price of disobedience. Even whispers of doubt or skepticism were enough to draw suspicion, and entire communities could find themselves under scrutiny if they failed to adhere strictly to the Ministorum's teachings. The consequences of heresy were severe. Families were torn apart, cities put to the torch, and entire populations sent to labor camps as punishment for straying from the faith. The Ministorum's purges were ruthless, demonstrating that in the Imperium, loyalty to the Emperor was the highest law, one that could not be questioned or compromised. As the cult imperialis continued to spread, it became more than a religion. It became the very identity of the Imperium's citizens. In a galaxy of perpetual war and existential threat, belief in the Emperor was a refuge, a unifying force, and a weapon. It was a shield for those who needed hope and a sword against those who posed a threat to the Imperium's unity. The Imperium was vast and varied, but through the Ministorum, every corner of it echoed with the same hymns, the same prayers, and the same devotion to the God Emperor. Faith had become not only a source of strength, but also a means of control, binding humanity together in a single purpose: survival in service to the Emperor's divine will. The faith-driven machine of the Imperium is sustained not only by a devotion to doctrine, but also by a series of pivotal events that have molded it into an unbreakable force. Among the most defining moments in the history of the ecclesiarchy was the declaration of the Thorian Reformation, an era-shaping movement that reshaped the faith, tested the unity of the Imperium, and birthed a new fervor within the ecclesiarchy. The Thorian Reformation transformed the structure, purpose, and aspirations of the Adeptus Ministorum, setting the stage for both its modern organization and the uncompromising orthodoxy that would come to define it. The Reformation began in a time of unprecedented crisis. Across the Imperium, corruption, inefficiency, and doctrinal confusion weakened the ecclesiarchy's hold on the faithful. Rogue preachers, regional cardinals, and even entire planetary cults began interpreting the Emperor's teachings in their own ways, resulting in fragmented doctrines that clashed with the ecclesiarchy's official narrative. Worlds began adopting conflicting beliefs, some distorting the Emperor's worship with heretical elements, others shifting their allegiance entirely, venerating local saints and miracle workers over the Emperor himself. This disunity made it clear that without strong, centralized control, the Ministorum's influence would fracture and the Imperium itself could be torn apart from within. As rumors of these deviations reached Terra, the upper echelons of the Ministorum realized that drastic action was necessary to secure the Emperor's worship against any threat, whether internal or external. In response, Thorian, a visionary cardinal known for his unyielding faith and exceptional charisma, spearheaded a sweeping reform that would establish a strict, centralized orthodoxy and enforce an unbroken line of faith across every world in the Imperium. Named for its leader, the Thorian Reformation aimed to eradicate heresy, standardize doctrine, and place absolute control over the faith in the hands of the ecclesiarchy. Thorian's first move was to eliminate the doctrinal variations that had arisen among the many worlds of the Imperium. He initiated a campaign of purges and inquests to root out those who had strayed from the central tenets of the cult imperialis, sparing no one in his mission to restore purity to the Emperor's faith. Traveling from sector to sector, Thorian's representatives interrogated local priests, preachers, and cardinals, interrogating them for even the slightest deviation. Any who resisted were branded as heretics and executed. This sweeping purge sent a message across the galaxy. The Emperor's word was singular, and no deviation would be tolerated. With each purged heretic, the ecclesiarchy solidified its image as the unassailable guardian of the Emperor's divine truth. Thorian's reforms did not stop at purging heretics. He also introduced a standardized system of scripture that outlined the Emperor's will in explicit detail, leaving no room for regional interpretations. These texts, known as the canon of the God Emperor, became the foundation of the Ministorum's teachings, shaping the beliefs of billions. Every preacher, every confessor, and every teacher within the Imperium was required to study and follow these scriptures without question. The canon was comprehensive and inflexible, detailing everything from the proper prayers for each occasion to the correct method of burning heretical artifacts. Thorian's canon aimed to eliminate any possibility of misinterpretation, creating a doctrinal framework that would be passed down through generations. At the same time, Thorian realized that instilling fear alone would not be enough to unite the faith. He saw the need for a deeper, more personal connection between the people and the Emperor's worship, one that would inspire both fear and love, loyalty and devotion. To achieve this, he promoted the veneration of saints and martyrs who had given their lives in the service of the Emperor. Thorian ordered the construction of shrines and altars dedicated to these figures, giving citizens tangible heroes to whom they could direct their prayers and offerings. By introducing saints as intermediaries between the Emperor and his people, the ecclesiarchy created a sense of personal devotion within the broader worship, making the faith feel both universal and intimate. Through the veneration of saints, the ecclesiarchy instilled a culture of martyrdom and sacrifice within the Imperium. Citizens came to see death in service to the Emperor as the highest honor, a pathway to spiritual immortality. Stories of the saints' lives, their miracles, and their ultimate sacrifices were spread across the galaxy, becoming a cornerstone of imperial belief. These figures represented ideals that every citizen could aspire to: courage, loyalty, and unwavering devotion. The stories served as both inspiration and a warning. Those who followed the Emperor's will would be remembered forever, while those who strayed faced eternal damnation. However, Thorian's reforms faced significant resistance, particularly from regions and individuals who had grown powerful within the older, more decentralized structure. Numerous cardinals and influential clergy who saw their autonomy slipping away resisted Thorian's authority. In some sectors, minor insurrections broke out as influential figures sought to retain their power. Yet Thorian, with the full backing of the ecclesiarchy's military might, suppressed these uprisings with ruthless efficiency. He dispatched squads of witch hunters and, where necessary, the Sisters of Battle to crush any resistance, ensuring that his vision for the Imperium's faith would be enforced at any cost. The Thorian Reformation also marked the first widespread deployment of inquisitorial agents within the ecclesiarchy. These agents, tasked with identifying and eliminating threats to the faith, reported directly to the ecclesiarchy's highest officials, bypassing traditional channels of authority. Their presence established a permanent culture of vigilance within the Ministorum, where every member understood that they were constantly under observation. Over time, this watchful eye extended to the wider population of the Imperium. Citizens learned to monitor one another, reporting any suspicious behavior or signs of doubt to their local preachers. In this way, the Thorian Reformation created a self-policing society where loyalty was paramount and deviation from the faith was swiftly eradicated. The final stage of Thorian's Reformation involved consolidating the ecclesiarchy's influence over the various imperial institutions. Thorian's reforms declared that the emperor's worship was inseparable from every aspect of imperial life, asserting that loyalty to the ecclesiarchy was indistinguishable from loyalty to the Imperium itself. Under his guidance, the Ministorum became the de facto overseer of not only religious life, but also moral conduct and cultural norms, ensuring that every facet of society aligned with the faith. Even the administratum, the Imperium's sprawling bureaucracy, was expected to abide by the ecclesiarchy's decrees. Over time, the lines between the Ministorum's influence and the Imperium's secular governance blurred, creating a society where religious devotion and civic duty were one and the same. The Thorian Reformation transformed the Adeptus Ministorum from a fractured institution into a centralized and immensely powerful force. It was a turning point that defined the modern ecclesiarchy, shaping it into an ironclad authority over the emperor's worship. This era of strict orthodoxy not only fortified the Imperium's faith, but also forged a new culture of fanaticism that permeated every level of society. Thorian's reforms ensured that the Ministorum's reach extended from the highest nobles to the lowest hive workers, leaving no corner of the Imperium untouched by the Emperor's influence. The legacy of the Thorian Reformation is one of both stability and oppression. By eradicating variation within the faith, Thorian effectively unified the Imperium's spiritual life, providing a common cause that bridged the vast distances between worlds. Yet, in doing so, he fostered a culture of fear, where any doubt could lead to condemnation and punishment. The Ministorum's doctrines became more than a set of beliefs. They became the foundation of imperial society, demanding unyielding loyalty and obedience from all. Through the Thorian Reformation, the Adeptus Ministorum emerged as not only the custodian of the Emperor's faith, but also a key instrument of control within the Imperium. Its doctrines, sanctified by centuries of tradition and bolstered by the legacy of Thorian, instilled a collective mindset that emphasized duty, sacrifice, and an unwavering commitment to the God Emperor. This era set the stage for the ecclesiarchy as we know it today, a religious empire within the Imperium that dictates the thoughts, actions, and beliefs of countless worlds, wielding the Emperor's faith as both shield and sword in its unending mission to protect humanity's soul. The power of the Adeptus Ministorum lies not only in its rigid doctrines and vast bureaucracy, but also in its ability to adapt when faced with crises that threaten the very foundation of the faith. Throughout its long history, the ecclesiarchy has faced numerous threats that tested its authority, some from within its own ranks and others from forces lurking beyond the Imperium's borders. These crises have become defining moments, each one pushing the Ministorum to evolve its strategies for maintaining control over the hearts and minds of the imperial population. Whether through purges, inquisitions, or the ruthless elimination of dissent, the ecclesiarchy has demonstrated a readiness to do whatever is necessary to preserve the cult imperialis. One of the most perilous threats to the Ministorum's authority has always been heresy, a catch-all term for any belief, thought, or practice that deviates from the rigid doctrine of the ecclesiarchy. Heresy is seen as more than a spiritual failing. It is a cancer that, if left unchecked, has the potential to spread through entire worlds, weakening the Imperium from within. To the ecclesiarchy, heretics are enemies of the Emperor himself, their very existence an insult to the sanctity of his worship. As a result, the Ministorum has developed a complex and often brutal system for identifying, investigating, and eradicating heresy. This system includes an array of organizations and individuals dedicated to rooting out dissent and enforcing the Emperor's will, creating a culture of vigilance and suspicion that pervades every corner of imperial society. At the forefront of this battle against heresy are the witch hunters, agents of the Ministorum known for their unyielding dedication to purging any trace of deviance from the faith. These witch hunters are feared and respected in equal measure, wielding considerable authority as they travel from world to world, scrutinizing populations and interrogating those suspected of harboring unorthodox beliefs. Armed with the Emperor's mandate and a license to kill, witch hunters operate above local laws, answerable only to the highest ranks of the ecclesiarchy. Their methods are as varied as they are ruthless. Some rely on psychological manipulation and torture. Others prefer public trials and executions, using fear as a tool to instill loyalty. Wherever they go, the witch hunters leave an unmistakable message. Heresy will not be tolerated, and loyalty to the Emperor must be absolute. While the witch hunters are a potent weapon against heresy, they are not the only force used by the ecclesiarchy in its struggle to maintain doctrinal purity. The Ordo Hereticus, a specialized branch of the Inquisition, often collaborates with the Ministorum to address the most dangerous and insidious forms of heresy. Unlike the witch hunters, who focus on public displays of faith and loyalty, the Ordo Hereticus deals with more clandestine threats, hidden cults, secret societies, and individuals who subvert imperial doctrine from the shadows. These inquisitors operate with a secrecy and ruthlessness that rivals even the witch hunters, conducting covert investigations and eradicating threats before they can take root. Their tactics are diverse, ranging from espionage and sabotage to direct intervention, and they are often accompanied by squads of battle-hardened agents or even assassins. Together, the witch hunters and the Ordo Hereticus form a relentless force dedicated to rooting out heresy at every level, ensuring that the cult imperialis remains unchallenged. The ecclesiarchy's war on heresy is not limited to direct confrontation. Recognizing that faith itself can be a powerful weapon, the Ministorum employs widespread propaganda to reinforce loyalty and instill fear of the consequences of dissent. Public executions of heretics, often staged in grand cathedrals or city squares, serve as both punishment and deterrent, demonstrating the price of deviation. These executions are carefully orchestrated spectacles where confessions are extracted, evidence of heresy is presented, and the condemned are paraded before the masses. These events are designed to inspire terror and obedience as citizens witness the fate of those who stray from the Emperor's light. By making examples of heretics, the ecclesiarchy reinforces the narrative that only through unwavering faith can humanity hope to survive the darkness that surrounds the Imperium. In addition to the purges and public displays, the Ministorum also uses education as a means to prevent heresy from taking root. From a young age, imperial citizens are taught that the Emperor is their only salvation, and that any deviation from his worship is a direct threat to humanity. Schools, known as Schola Progenium, are run by the ecclesiarchy and serve to indoctrinate the children of deceased imperial servants, training them to become loyal soldiers, administrators, and clergy. These institutions drill imperial doctrine into their students, creating generations of citizens who are not only devoted to the Emperor, but also ready to identify and report any signs of heresy. By shaping the beliefs of the young, the Ministorum ensures that loyalty to the faith is deeply ingrained, creating a populace that sees heresy not only as a crime, but as a personal affront to their own beliefs. However, the fight against heresy is complicated by the fact that the Imperium is vast and its people are diverse, with each world presenting unique challenges to the Ministorum's efforts. Some planets are home to ancient beliefs and customs that predate the arrival of the Imperium, while others are inhabited by populations that live in near constant contact with alien species. For the ecclesiarchy, these unique cultures are both a challenge and a threat, as they can give rise to nonconformist ideas that the Ministorum views as potential seeds of heresy. In these cases, the ecclesiarchy often deploys special agents known as cultural purifiers, whose task is to reshape the local culture to align with the cult imperialis. These agents study the customs of each world and work to blend them with imperial doctrine, creating a hybrid belief system that emphasizes loyalty to the emperor while eradicating any elements that could foster dissent. Despite these efforts, the Ministorum's influence is not absolute, and some heretical groups manage to evade detection or suppression. Among these are rogue cults, secret organizations that revere forbidden knowledge or ancient pre-imperial gods. Some are drawn to the allure of chaos, tempted by promises of power and freedom from the rigid laws of the Imperium. Others seek enlightenment through ancient texts and philosophies that contradict the ecclesiarchy's teachings. These heretics are hunted relentlessly by both the witch hunters and the Ordo Hereticus, but their existence serves as a reminder of the challenges the ecclesiarchy faces. The threat of heresy is ever present, lurking in the shadows and festering within the Imperium's underbelly, a constant reminder that the war for the Emperor's faith is never truly won. In times of crisis, when heresy grows too widespread to be contained by ordinary means, the ecclesiarchy may resort to declaring a war of faith. These wars are holy crusades, sanctioned by the Ministorum and aimed at purging entire regions of suspected heretical influence. A war of faith is a brutal and total campaign, with entire worlds subject to re-education, purges, or even complete extermination if deemed necessary. These wars are led by the most devout commanders within the Ministorum, who rally armies of the faithful and lead them into battle against any who would challenge the Emperor's divinity. During these crusades, the Ministorum often works alongside other branches of the Imperium's military, creating an unstoppable force that overwhelms any resistance. These campaigns are devastating, leaving scars across entire sectors, but they serve to reinforce the Ministorum's authority and remind the population that loyalty to the Emperor is a matter of survival. The ecclesiarchy's unyielding stance on heresy has created a culture where vigilance is paramount, and citizens are constantly reminded of their duty to report any suspicious behavior. This has led to a society where trust is scarce, as individuals live in fear of being denounced by neighbors, friends, or even family members. While this atmosphere of suspicion ensures compliance, it also has a corrosive effect on the fabric of imperial society, fostering paranoia and isolation. Nonetheless, to the ecclesiarchy, these sacrifices are necessary for the survival of the faith. The Ministorum's leaders believe that only through absolute control and vigilance can humanity remain safe from the darkness that lies beyond the Emperor's light. The ongoing struggle against heresy defines much of the Ministorum's role within the Imperium. It is a never-ending battle, a war fought not only against external threats, but also within the hearts and minds of humanity itself. Through this tireless effort, the ecclesiarchy has forged a society where the faith in the Emperor is both a source of unity and a tool of oppression. By rooting out dissent and eliminating heresy, the Ministorum has created a world in which faith is synonymous with survival, a fragile balance that must be constantly maintained if humanity is to endure the horrors of the galaxy. The cost is high, but in the eyes of the ecclesiarchy, it is a price worth paying to safeguard the Imperium's soul. Among the unique and daunting aspects of the Adeptus Ministorum's mission to preserve the faith are the specialized methods and technologies developed to control the minds and hearts of imperial citizens. For the ecclesiarchy, maintaining the cult imperialis goes beyond sermons and doctrines. It involves harnessing technology, crafting rituals, and wielding symbolic authority with great precision. These tools are as vital to the Ministorum as bolters are to the Astra Militarum, each designed to deepen devotion, promote conformity, and ensure that faith in the Emperor permeates every level of society. One of the most effective tools in the Ministorum's arsenal is the Vox Domini, a system of communication devices embedded in public spaces, temples, and even work areas. These devices broadcast prayers, hymns, and sermons day and night, ensuring that the Emperor's name echoes ceaselessly through the minds of the populace. The Vox Domini was originally developed to reinforce loyalty and unity during difficult times, providing a constant source of inspiration and guidance for the faithful. However, over the centuries, the Ministorum has turned these devices into tools of indoctrination. The relentless repetition of religious mantras and exaltations serves to normalize the faith in such a way that citizens internalize it almost instinctively. Even in the remotest hive slum or distant outpost, the Emperor's voice, filtered through the ecclesiarchy's rhetoric, is never far from the ears of his people. Another powerful technology employed by the Ministorum is the Psychana Choir, an organization made up of psychic individuals trained to amplify and project emotions. These psychers, operating under strict control, are tasked with focusing the psychic energy of the faithful to bolster morale and stoke fervor. They can invoke feelings of zeal, courage, and unity during times of war, their psychic influence spreading over vast numbers of troops to inspire unwavering loyalty and fearlessness in battle. While the choir's activities are limited due to the inherent danger of psychers, their impact is profound, particularly when used in support of war of faith campaigns. These psychers channel the Emperor's will, their powers weaponized to turn entire regiments into vessels of fanatical devotion. The Ministorum also makes extensive use of relic technology, especially when instilling faith on worlds where belief in the Emperor is weak or emerging. Relics such as the Blade of Saint Valeria or the Chalice of Redemption are often displayed in temples, where citizens can witness them and feel a personal connection to the Emperor's saints and martyrs. These relics are not merely symbolic. They are often equipped with hidden technology that can create sensory effects. For instance, some relics produce faint but captivating scents, while others are equipped with hidden mechanisms to radiate warmth or emit gentle sounds. Such effects give relics an almost supernatural aura, persuading the masses of their divine origin. To the faithful, these artifacts serve as tangible reminders of the Emperor's power and presence. Pilgrims travel from distant worlds to gaze upon these holy items, believing that to witness them is to receive the Emperor's blessing. In tandem with these technological marvels, the Ministorum relies heavily on the practice of sacred rites and rituals. These rituals, often elaborate and meticulously choreographed, serve as more than mere expressions of faith. They are psychological tools, carefully designed to foster submission and obedience. Some ceremonies involve communal acts of devotion, such as mass penitence or the swearing of loyalty oaths, during which citizens pledge themselves anew to the Emperor's service. Others are performed to mark significant milestones, such as the blessing of the tools, where even the most basic instruments and weapons are consecrated in the Emperor's name. Through these rituals, the Ministorum ensures that every aspect of a citizen's life, down to the tools they handle and the air they breathe, is sanctified as part of their worship. Among these rites is the sacred act of penitence, a cornerstone of imperial devotion. Citizens are encouraged and often required to seek absolution for perceived failings and shortcomings in their service to the Emperor. Confessionals in temples are always active as citizens visit to confess their sins, real or imagined, to Ministorum clerics. This act of repentance is not only a personal release, it is also a means by which the ecclesiarchy maintains its authority. By confessing their sins, citizens acknowledge their imperfections and renew their dependence on the Emperor's guidance. For the Ministorum, penitence is a potent psychological tool, as it reinforces the notion that everyone must strive to be worthy of the Emperor's grace. Technology is also used to assist with the surveillance of citizens, ensuring that any signs of disobedience or heretical behavior are quickly identified and dealt with. Surveillance cherubim, small floating servitors resembling winged infants, are commonly used in temples, workplaces, and public squares to monitor the behavior of citizens. These cherubim are equipped with sensors and audio recording devices, their purpose hidden beneath an appearance designed to evoke innocence and purity. They hover silently, recording everything they observe and transmitting it to the local ecclesiarchy authorities. This constant surveillance creates an environment of mutual mistrust, as citizens know that their every move is being watched. The cherubim serve as an ever-present reminder of the Emperor's omniscience, reinforcing the idea that there is no hiding from the Ministorum's judgment. In addition to cherubim, the Ministorum makes use of data shrines, specially consecrated cogitators or databanks loaded with Ministorum-approved doctrines and scriptures. These shrines are installed in public spaces, temples, and even private homes on more devout worlds. Citizens are encouraged to use these devices to access recorded sermons, historical accounts of saints' lives, and guidance on how to live in accordance with the faith. The content is carefully curated to ensure that it reinforces loyalty and discourages independent thought. In this way, data shrines serve as both an educational resource and a means of control, guiding the thoughts of the faithful and preventing the spread of unorthodox ideas. Alongside technology, the Ministorum relies on powerful symbols that speak to the psyche of the imperial citizenry. Symbols such as the aquila, the twin-headed eagle, are used to reinforce loyalty and strength. This symbol is stamped on temples, armor, clothing, and even the skin of the faithful, serving as a daily reminder of the Imperium's unity under the Emperor. The ecclesiarchy often employs artists and artisans to create grand statues and murals depicting scenes of the Emperor's glory and the saints' sacrifices. These visual displays, combined with the Ministorum's rituals and artifacts, create a visually saturated environment where loyalty to the Emperor is inescapable. Every wall, every banner, and every insignia tells the same story. The Emperor is humanity's salvation, and the Ministorum is his voice. To ensure compliance during periods of unrest, the Ministorum also employs re-education camps and penitential labor colonies. These facilities serve as both punishment and rehabilitation, where those who have shown heretical tendencies are subjected to intensive indoctrination. In these camps, inmates are required to memorize scriptures, undergo daily confessions, and perform arduous labor in the Emperor's name. Through a combination of physical exhaustion and relentless indoctrination, these facilities break down any remnants of resistance, reprogramming the heretic into a devoted servant. The camps are a last resort for the Ministorum, used when all other methods have failed, but they are a stark reminder of the length the ecclesiarchy will go to enforce conformity. The Ministorum's influence extends even into the realm of medicine. When imperial citizens seek healing, they often encounter ecclesiarchal chirurgeons, doctors trained not only in medical techniques, but also in the tenets of faith. These chirurgeons offer physical healing alongside spiritual guidance, framing medical recovery as a form of redemption. Patients are encouraged to view their suffering as a test of faith, with recovery seen as a reward for their loyalty to the Emperor. In cases where physical healing is not possible, chirurgeons administer rites to ease the soul's journey to the Emperor's side. This fusion of medicine and faith reinforces the Ministorum's presence even in moments of vulnerability, ensuring that loyalty to the Emperor remains paramount at all times. Through these technologies, symbols, and carefully crafted rituals, the Ministorum wields a near-absolute power over the daily lives of the Imperium's citizens. The machinery of faith operates in unison, from the grand cathedrals on hive worlds to the smallest prayer shrines on remote colonies. Each tool serves a purpose, reinforcing the Emperor's presence in every facet of life. The faith promoted by the Ministorum is not merely a belief system. It is an immersive experience that defines the reality of every imperial citizen, shaping their thoughts, guiding their actions, and binding them to the Imperium. This arsenal of techniques, whether through relentless reminders of the Emperor's greatness or the silent threat of surveillance cherubim, ensures that the citizens of the Imperium remain steadfast in their devotion. For the ecclesiarchy, the integration of faith and technology is a weapon as powerful as any bolter or chainsword, an unbreakable hold on the minds of billions. It is this combination of fear, reverence, and unwavering belief that fortifies the Imperium against the darkness beyond, ensuring that the cult imperialis stands strong in a galaxy that knows no mercy. Among the countless heroes and villains who populate the Imperium's history, some figures stand out not only for their actions, but for the indelible mark they left on the faith of the Imperium. These characters, each embodying either the virtues or the vices of the cult imperialis, have shaped the way the Imperium interprets its doctrines, transforming the Ministorum into the force it is today. From holy saints and pious martyrs to twisted heretics and treacherous betrayers, these figures have inspired generations, instilled fear, and even caused entire worlds to shift their loyalties. One of the most revered figures in the history of the ecclesiarchy is Saint Celestine, the living saint. Known for her miraculous ability to return from death, Celestine embodies the Ministorum's core belief in the Emperor's divine intervention. Clad in golden armor and wielding a burning sword, she has appeared in countless battles, rallying the faithful and inspiring soldiers to fight with renewed zeal. Her presence is often seen as a sign of the Emperor's direct blessing, proof that the God Emperor watches over his people and intervenes when their need is greatest. Celestine's miracles are legendary. She has healed the wounded with a touch, driven back enemy forces with mere words, and even been seen to glow with a light so brilliant that it blinds her enemies. To the faithful, she is nothing less than the Emperor's angel incarnate, a living reminder of his everlasting presence. Celestine's reputation as a miracle worker has made her a figure of almost mythical proportions. Her exploits are recounted in hymns, her image replicated in statues and paintings across the galaxy. Her return from death is often cited as proof of the Emperor's divinity and the power of faith. However, her role is not limited to inspiring the masses. Her very existence also serves as a political symbol within the ecclesiarchy. Celestine's appearance in a conflict can sway the outcome by emboldening the loyal and demoralizing the heretical. Her presence is often requested by Imperial commanders seeking to bolster their troops' morale, but she appears only when she chooses, seemingly answering only the Emperor's call. This divine autonomy places her outside the direct control of the Ministorum, yet her alignment with its goals has made her one of its greatest assets. In stark contrast to Celestine stands the infamous apostate Cardinal Bucharus. Known as the Cardinal of the Crimson Flame, Bucharus led one of the most destructive and heretical rebellions in the Imperium's history. Originally a respected figure within the ecclesiarchy, Bucharus amassed a significant following, preaching a radical interpretation of imperial doctrine that veered dangerously toward self-worship and absolute authority. His followers believed him to be a chosen prophet of the Emperor, and through cunning manipulation, Bucharus convinced entire worlds to follow him, abandoning their loyalty to the Ministorum. His rise to power culminated in the Plague of Unbelief, a catastrophic period in which several imperial sectors were torn apart by Bucharus's heretical regime. Bucharus's fall was as dramatic as his rise. After years of brutal suppression by the Imperium's forces, he was eventually captured and executed, his legacy serving as a cautionary tale for future generations. His story is taught in ecclesiarchy schools as an example of the dangers of unchecked ambition and deviation from the faith. His heretical rule serves as a reminder of the consequences of straying from the Emperor's true path, and his name is synonymous with betrayal and corruption. In death, Bucharus has become a symbol of the Ministorum's vigilance, a justification for its unrelenting scrutiny of even its most loyal servants. His legacy is one of fear, ensuring that those who rise within the ecclesiarchy understand the dire consequences of defying its doctrines. Beyond these legendary figures, the Imperium's faith is also shaped by countless saints, each representing a specific virtue or aspect of imperial life. Saints such as Drusus, Sabbat, and Olanius Pius are celebrated for their sacrifices, with entire worlds dedicated to their worship. Each of these saints has a unique story of martyrdom, miraculous deeds, or piety that reflects the virtues the ecclesiarchy holds dear: courage, humility, and unwavering loyalty. These saints are immortalized in Scripture, and their lives are studied by the faithful who seek to emulate their dedication. Many citizens pray to specific saints for guidance in different aspects of their lives. A soldier might pray to Saint Sabbat for courage before battle, while a laborer may seek Saint Drusus's blessing for strength to endure the hardships of his daily toil. These saints are not only symbols of faith, they are also instruments of the ecclesiarchy's control, their stories carefully curated to reinforce loyalty and obedience. Through their canonization, the Ministorum creates role models for the Imperium citizens, providing examples of how one should live and, if necessary, die in service to the Emperor. The tales of the saints are filled with lessons on the virtues of sacrifice and the dangers of doubt, each story a powerful tool in the Ministorum's efforts to cultivate a population that views loyalty to the Emperor as the highest calling. While saints and martyrs form the heart of imperial devotion, there are also darker figures who embody the depths of heresy and treachery, their names invoked as warnings. Figures like Cyrene Valentor, a former preacher who turned against the ecclesiarchy, serve as symbols of the corrupting allure of forbidden knowledge. Cyrene was a high-ranking cleric who sought answers to the mysteries of the warp and was ultimately corrupted, her pursuit of knowledge leading her to the embrace of chaos. Her transformation into a heretic marked her as an example of the dangers of unchecked curiosity. Today, her name is spoken with fear, and she is held up as a symbol of the peril inherent in questioning the doctrines of the Ministorum. Even within the ranks of the faithful, there are those who walk a fine line between veneration and heresy. Some clergy have been accused of saintcraft, a forbidden practice involving the manipulation or exaggeration of miracles to increase their personal power and influence. While the ecclesiarchy publicly condemns such actions, there are whispered rumors that certain high-ranking members have exploited saintly relics or even fabricated miracles to solidify their control over local populations. These incidents, when uncovered, are dealt with ruthlessly, as the Ministorum cannot afford to let its reputation be tarnished by accusations of deceit. Nonetheless, such tales serve as a reminder that even those closest to the Emperor are not immune to corruption. The ecclesiarchy also contends with rogue preachers and self-styled prophets who arise from within the population, claiming divine visions or revelations from the Emperor himself. These individuals are a constant source of tension, as their claims often attract followers and spark localized cults. While some of these preachers genuinely believe in their visions, others exploit their positions for personal gain. The Ministorum is quick to silence or absorb these rogue figures, offering them positions within the ecclesiarchy if they submit or if they resist, branding them as heretics to be purged. By absorbing or eliminating these figures, the Ministorum protects its monopoly on the interpretation of the Emperor's will, ensuring that no competing voices challenge its authority. The figure of the confessor holds a special place within the Ministorum's hierarchy, embodying both the virtues of faith and the potential for fanaticism. Confessors are itinerant preachers who travel from world to world, delivering fiery sermons and rallying the faithful to purge heresy. Known for their passionate oratory and unyielding zeal, confessors are beloved by the common citizens, who view them as direct conduits of the Emperor's wrath and mercy. However, their influence makes them unpredictable, as some confessors become too powerful, gathering followings that rival those of local clergy. The ecclesiarchy monitors these figures closely, careful to support their work while ensuring that their loyalty remains unquestioned. Perhaps the most haunting figures in the Ministorum's history are the penitent saints, individuals who committed grave sins and later sought redemption through extreme acts of penance. These figures are venerated not for their purity, but for their willingness to endure unimaginable suffering in the Emperor's name. The penitent saints are powerful symbols of the possibility of redemption, showing that even those who falter may find salvation through unwavering faith and sacrifice. Their stories serve as cautionary tales and inspire those who struggle with their own doubts, reminding them that repentance is always possible, though it may come at great personal cost. The lives of these heroes and villains serve as a testament to the complex and often contradictory nature of the Imperium's faith. The Ministorum reveres saints who inspire hope and strength, while simultaneously condemning heretics and villains whose actions threaten to undermine the faith. This duality allows the ecclesiarchy to present a clear dichotomy between the righteous and the damned, shaping the worldview of its followers to see loyalty as the ultimate virtue and dissent as the ultimate sin. Through these tales, the Ministorum not only honors those who have served the Emperor faithfully, but also uses their legacies to instill an unwavering sense of duty within the Imperium's citizens. In a galaxy beset by unimaginable horrors, these figures, saints, sinners, and martyrs alike, serve as anchors of belief, embodying the virtues that the Imperium holds dear and the vices that it fears. Each story is a lesson, each name a reminder of the cost of faith or the price of betrayal. For the ecclesiarchy, the cult imperialis is more than a religion. It is a living history, a legacy built on the sacrifices, triumphs, and failures of those who have come before. Through these figures, the faith of the Imperium endures, inspiring new generations to stand firm. Among the myriad mysteries that surround the faith of the Imperium, there exist secrets that even the most devout of the ecclesiarchy cannot fully explain. These mysteries are tightly woven into the fabric of the cult imperialis, fueling speculation, wonder, and in some cases, dread among the faithful. To the Ministorum, these enigmatic aspects of the Emperor's divinity, the role of saints, and the nature of miracles serve both as sources of inspiration and instruments of control. However, even the highest officials of the ecclesiarchy understand that some questions are best left unanswered, for the truth behind these mysteries could shake the foundation of the Imperium's faith, or strengthen it in ways they cannot foresee. One of the greatest and most unsettling mysteries is the true nature of the Emperor himself. For most citizens of the Imperium, the Emperor is unquestionably a god, the immortal protector of humanity who watches over his people from the Golden Throne. Yet, within the ecclesiarchy, there exist conflicting theories and whispers regarding what the Emperor truly is, or was. Some among the highest ranks speculate that the Emperor, while undoubtedly extraordinary, may not have been divine in the literal sense. They argue that he was a man who achieved apotheosis through sheer will and psychic power, an unprecedented being who transcended human limitations. These figures are careful to keep such musings within the bounds of secrecy, for any open questioning of the Emperor's divinity is heresy punishable by death. Nonetheless, the question of the Emperor's true nature haunts the minds of those who study his works most closely, hinting at a deeper understanding that remains just out of reach. This uncertainty is compounded by the mysterious Golden Throne, the ancient device that sustains the Emperor's shattered body in a state of eternal life. The throne is a masterpiece of technology and psychic engineering, its workings largely unknown even to the tech priests of Mars who maintain it. It is said that the throne requires daily sacrifices of psychers to fuel its immense energy demands, drawing upon their life forces to keep the Emperor connected to the Imperium through the Astronomicon, a psychic beacon that allows Imperial ships to navigate the warp. However, rumors persist that the throne is failing, that it is a decaying relic that can no longer sustain the Emperor indefinitely. The ecclesiarchy takes great pains to dismiss these rumors, fearing that knowledge of the Emperor's vulnerability could sow doubt and despair among the faithful. Nevertheless, the fear that the Golden Throne may one day cease to function is a shadow that looms over the Imperium, a specter that threatens to unravel the stability of the faith itself. The miracles attributed to saints are another profound mystery. Some of these events are documented in detail, while others are shrouded in myth and hearsay, their veracity impossible to verify. Tales of saints returning from death, performing impossible feats of strength, or healing the sick with a touch are widespread. The ecclesiarchy promotes these stories, using them to inspire devotion, but privately, some within the Ministorum ponder whether these miracles are truly the work of the Emperor or if other forces are at play. One unsettling theory suggests that these miracles may be the result of latent psychic powers or warp manipulation, abilities that the Emperor once outlawed for their corrupting influence. This theory is never discussed openly, as it would imply that some of the Imperium's most revered saints might have tapped into the same forces that fuel the heresies they oppose. Such a revelation would be catastrophic for the ecclesiarchy, for it would call into question the very nature of sanctity itself. The Sisters of Battle, the ecclesiarchy's militant arm, are often present during battles where miraculous occurrences are reported, adding another layer of intrigue to the phenomenon of miracles. Some sisters seem to experience states of heightened awareness or receive visions in the midst of combat, moments that they interpret as the Emperor's direct guidance. These visions lead them to strike down heretics with unnatural precision or survive wounds that should be fatal. While the Ministorum attributes these feats to the Emperor's intervention, other observers suggest that the sisters may possess an unspoken connection to the warp, a terrifying thought given the Imperium's stance on psychic powers. Yet for the sisters themselves, these miracles are proof of their unwavering faith, a divine gift that strengthens them in their crusade against heresy. There are also mysteries surrounding the relics held sacred by the ecclesiarchy. Each relic is venerated as a tangible piece of the Emperor's legacy, said to hold holy power or even fragments of the Emperor's essence. Yet, for some of these artifacts, no verifiable history exists. Relics such as the Holy Bolter of Saint Mina or the Blessed Armor of Saint Catherine appear suddenly in the historical record, their origins unknown, yet they are accepted as holy due to the aura of sanctity that surrounds them. Some theologians and historians within the ecclesiarchy quietly debate whether these relics were genuinely wielded by saints or created later to inspire faith. In either case, the relics' impact on the faithful is profound, as the Ministorum uses them as focal points for pilgrimage and worship, imbuing them with a significance that transcends their physical form. The concept of sainthood itself is fraught with enigmas. The process of canonizing a saint is one of the ecclesiarchy's most secretive rites, involving an intricate investigation of a candidate's life, miracles, and martyrdom. However, the criteria for sainthood are not as clear-cut as they appear. Some figures, despite displaying extraordinary devotion, are never canonized, while others are raised to sainthood despite histories that include questionable acts. The ecclesiarchy insists that the Emperor alone guides the selection of saints, but whispers within the Ministorum suggest that political motives and alliances often play a role in these decisions. Some cardinals and high-ranking clergy may advocate for the canonization of individuals who serve their interests, ensuring that saints emerge from regions or factions that align with their own agendas. This manipulation of sainthood raises the question: are some saints chosen for their faith or for their utility to the Ministorum's goals? Equally puzzling is the phenomenon of spontaneous miracles reported on certain worlds. These events, often referred to as blessings, occur without any apparent cause, leading some to believe that these worlds are under the Emperor's special protection. Reports of rain falling on drought-ravaged planets or plagues lifting without explanation are seized upon as signs of the Emperor's mercy. Yet, imperial scholars have occasionally suggested that such phenomena may be natural occurrences, their timing coincidental. The ecclesiarchy strongly discourages such skepticism, labeling any attempt to rationalize miracles as heretical. Still, for those who witness these events, the truth hardly matters. What matters is the belief that the Emperor himself has intervened to protect his people. Finally, there exists the mystery of the visions known as the Emperor's dreams. These visions are said to come to certain devout individuals, priests, soldiers, and even common citizens who claim to experience glimpses of the Emperor's mind. The dreams are described as both awe-inspiring and terrifying, filled with cryptic symbols, apocalyptic warnings, or glimpses of ancient battles. Those who receive these visions often become fervent preachers or warriors, dedicating their lives to deciphering the Emperor's will. The ecclesiarchy neither confirms nor denies the legitimacy of these dreams, allowing them to proliferate in rumor and legend. For some, the Emperor's dreams are divine messages, but others worry that they might be psychic echoes of the Emperor's struggle within the warp, fragments of his consciousness reaching out to the faithful. Regardless of their origin, the visions inspire unwavering loyalty, fueling the notion that the Emperor is still watching over his people, guiding them through the darkest times. These mysteries, unexplainable and perhaps unknowable, serve a crucial function for the ecclesiarchy. By maintaining an aura of the unknown around certain aspects of the faith, the Ministorum deepens the devotion of the faithful, who view these mysteries as proof of the Emperor's divine nature. The unanswered questions become a source of strength, reinforcing the idea that the Emperor's ways are beyond human understanding, thus demanding absolute trust. To the ecclesiarchy, these mysteries are not obstacles but essential elements of the faith, serving as reminders of the limits of mortal knowledge and the need for unwavering belief. In a galaxy where logic and reason are often overshadowed by fear and faith, these mysteries become pillars of hope, offering comfort to those who face unimaginable horrors. The faithful do not need explanations. They need assurance that their Emperor is with them, watching, protecting, and guiding them through the darkness. By preserving these mysteries, the ecclesiarchy ensures that the Emperor remains a transcendent figure, a god whose wisdom is beyond question and whose plans are beyond comprehension. In this way, the mysteries of the Imperium's faith become both a shield and a sword, empowering the faithful while keeping them bound to the Ministorum's vision of an unbreakable, eternal Imperium.